Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Really interesting topic here today on episode 2559 of the Cabral Concept Daily Show here. What we have is a topic entitled Why Doctors and Nurses Are Leaving Medicine. And I find this to be really interesting because I listened to a talk by a medical doctor, worked in hospital, and has been practicing now for over 10 years. Now, the talk was very succinct. It was a great speech that was given, not really chastising any one thing. I'm actually going to detail about a dozen different points for you here today, and also backs up what I've seen myself with a lot of my colleagues. So keep in mind, even though I practice natural medicine, right? I'm a doctor of naturopathy, board certified, double board certified. But here's the thing. I've never said that I don't like conventional medicine. Now, I don't like conventional medicine for the treatment of chronic disease. I don't. I'm very open and honest on that because they are not getting to the fundamental reasons of why someone has a chronic disease in the body in the first place. Now, I'm all for emergency room medicine. I'm all for the treatment of acute-based disease that is life-saving, right? And then I would just say allow natural health practitioners, integrative health practitioners, naturopathic doctors to work with individuals to help them get rid of the root cause of the reason why they even have the disease in the first place. But again, keep them alive, don't let them actually die, which is emergency room medicine and acute-based medicine is great for, and even pharmacology in that department. But after that, keeping people on a half a dozen to a dozen drugs by the time they're 60 years old, no, I mean, that has to go. I mean, that's archaic, right? I mean, it's awful. So here's the thing though. Medical doctors, though, they're indoctrinated into that. You know, you read blood work or someone's injured, there's trauma, and you're doing surgery, you're prescribing pharmaceuticals, and you're drawing blood. That's essentially what it comes down to. And again, we need that, and I'm not saying we don't. So again, I'm very happy that we have medical doctors, and I'm very happy that we have emergency room doctors, surgeons, and nurses. And nurses are making these practices happen, both, I would say, from a practice standpoint and also at the hospital. So I don't want doctors to disappear and I don't want nurses to disappear. But what I want to share with you, I think is very succinct. It's actually 15 points. We're going to go through them quickly. I want to see if these resonate with you, but I also want you to start to think about medicine as a whole, because a big part of why medical doctors and nurses are leaving is that it's no longer about healthcare. It's about sick care. And they're really tired of it. They really are. So it plays into it, and we can see why now more and more doctors and nurses are leaving, and there's going to be shortages in hospitals and potentially even private practices, especially on the nursing front, because we see so many nurses saying, I have other options. I can go work at wellness center. I could work at doing online virtual health coaching as an integrative health practitioner. Like, they have options, right? So let's get into it right now. The first one was this. It takes a massive amount of schooling to become a doctor and a nurse, right? So you're going to undergrad, and then you're going to 2 to 4 years of school, and then for medical doctors and nurses as well, but you're doing a lot of those internships for nurses during the 2+ years. And then for doctors, you're doing your residency. And then if you're a surgeon, you're even doing a couple more years. So it's a lot of schooling. And now what I would say is there's not the same level of prestige. So back in the day, like, let's say 50 years ago, if you were a doctor, it was very prestigious, right? Like very, very prestigious if you're a doctor. Now, there's other prestigious, I mean, you could be in tech, you could be in finance, you could be in whatever. And those I think are looked upon in the same way. I mean, they really, in my opinion, again, this is just, I'm giving an opinion, but it's also echoed by a lot of my colleagues. And it's echoed by this doctor as well that said some of this. I'm not going to, give them too much of a shout out just in case they don't want that type of notoriety because they are still in the medical-based field and they do a lot of consulting. But anyway, I thought that was important to look at that because it's interesting how in society, there's kind of the ebbs and flows of what's seen as like the top level, career or whatever it might be. I talk about it myself. I think that I don't believe that being a doctor is like in any way, shape, or form necessary in order to help people. And more people are finding that. They really are. They're becoming a nutritionist, personal trainer, massage therapist, functional range conditioning specialist. They're doing NSCA, CSCS, certified strength and conditioning specialist. They're becoming an integrative health practitioner, like whatever it might be. And they're working with people now, not just locally, but all over the world, which you can't do as a medical doctor. You need to be licensed in each state to be able to help. Okay, so that's that. So the massive schooling. And it's, again, now the next part is debt. So think about this. You have undergrad, and your undergrad now, like back when I was in school, it was like $36,000 a year, which is still insane. I mean, that's still an incredible amount of money, but now it's like $60,000 a year, right? Some schools are up to $80,000 a year. I mean, it's so wild. So you can be basically under $200,000 to what? $300,000+ of debt for undergrad. And then you're going to graduate school, and it's basically going to be the same price. So now you are under $500,000 of debt. That is so wild. Because even if you made $150,000, which would be like getting paid really well, like I think like most doctors would be more in like the 100, 120, but let's just say it's 125 because we'll do easier math. All right, so 125,000, you might say, oh, well, in 4 years, I pay back that $500,000. Well, no, it doesn't work that way, right? So you have taxes taken out, and you're going to be in one of the top tax brackets. So you got like a third of that taken out, let's say. Okay, so now you're down to what, like 90,000? Yeah, about 90,000 or so. Okay. But also, you have all your living expenses, just like every individual. So sure, you might take home $8,000 or so a month, but then you are going to subtract your rent, subtract whatever else it might be. And then the savings is what you're paying off your loan. So maybe you're left with, I don't know, $2,000 a month. Okay, so $25,000. Now, how long is it going to take you to pay back that $500,000? Well, 25,000 times 10 years is 250,000, right? There's interest though accumulating. So 20 years to pay back that school loan debt. I mean, so we have to understand that there is certainly a price to be paid for this higher level of schooling. And even if it gets you to be a larger earner, you still have to pay all of that back, right? So it's a big one. Also, there's been a lot of pay cuts with hospital consolidation. So I don't think that this is much in private practice, but certainly in pay cuts, this doctor spoke about a 30% cut. So not ideal, right? You're trying to pay off your school loans. You're trying to be able to live to a higher level of standard because you've invested 8 years of schooling plus potentially residency, and yet you're being scaled back in terms of your pay. A lot of issues is specifically with nurses as well. I mean, it affects doctors, no doubt about it, but nurses end up doing 2-3 times the workload that they were used to because there's shortages in hospitals and they want to do the right thing and help the patients, right? So they're trying their best to help the patients, but they're overworked and they have to take on more responsibility since there's less people. I mean, that's a challenge. The fifth one is that I actually just talked about this. The salaries are not paying back the loans fast enough. So doctors and nurses are saddled with debt. And that's pretty tough because now you're working because you have to work, not because you're allowed to do the work that you love. And that's a real problem, right? So like, well, I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. I can't go out on my own even if I wanted to because I have to worry about my family now and all this debt. Because remember, you're not really becoming a nurse until your mid-20s and a doctor until your late 20s. And that's if you go through all of your schooling and residencies right out of the gates. So you're a couple years into practice, you're already, 30, 31 years old. So again, you have to understand is like you start maybe having a family and you have to think about, okay, like I have to keep this job now. I have to do whatever they tell me to because I have to pay back all of this debt. So I think that's important to look at that. The other is worry. It's really worry about malpractice. It's worry about making a mistake. And if you're overworked, right, you're having more responsibility, the likelihood that you make a mistake goes up. Because you need to move faster, you need to get things done on time, and you need to be working with more people. And so I think that a lot of nurses and doctors are worried about making those mistakes, and they know that if they go into maybe private practice or something like that, they would work with less people, and they hope that they would be able to provide a better quality of care. Very interesting to look at that. I thought that was interesting. The seventh one is just litigation attorneys. They're just everywhere. And so again, doctors and nurses, they're trying to do the right thing. Mistakes do happen, but they're always worried about some type of litigation, something happening. They make a mistake or again, you can't make a mistake, right? As a doctor or a nurse, you really can't because people's lives are at stake. And it is unfortunate, but sometimes it does happen. And so you're always worried then about being sued, right? Litigation wise. And I think that that's a worry for many doctors as well. And I don't know that I put it in this list as well, but I'll tell you the insurance malpractice premiums that you need to get coverage for yourself go up all the time. So those are thousands a year to tens of thousands a year, and even more for surgeons. So again, that's another cost on a yearly basis that you need to incur as an individual. The eighth one, I talked about this a bit, but there's just not the same prestige as there used to be, meaning that, if you came from a family and that family said you can only become, or we only want you to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever else, another top tier career would be. I don't know that families are feeling the same way anymore. You could start your own business. You could, you'd be an entrepreneur in general. You could go into tech. You could go into finance. You could go into health. All of these things, I think, obviously are great careers. I don't know that there's like one best career anymore. And I just don't see it as like a doctor is more special than a real estate agent that works hard and does well and helps people, et cetera. And I don't think it's, again, better than, I don't think that most people would say, oh, I need to work with this doctor over this health coach or personal trainer, nutritionist. I don't see that. So I think that is gone. I think it's faded. No, it was slow going. There's still obviously some of that, and it is still big sometimes overseas, not as much here. And I know for sure, again, like I have a lot of friends and still colleagues in India, and there's still much more prestige, of course. I mean, I shouldn't say of course, but I think so. At least for my colleagues, and that's all over India. I mean, I've studied and worked all over India, so in internships. So that's that. The ninth one is lack of free time. You're always working as a doctor and a lot of times as a nurse. One, understaffing. Two, you want to earn that salary. You want to keep your position. You don't want a pay cut, all of those things. Not a lot of free time. Definitely no free time when you were in undergrad or medical school or during your residency, and then you go right into work. There's just not a lot of free time, and so people don't want that. It leads to point number 10, which is burnout, right? So a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses are just flat burnt out. They've been doing it for too many years because there wasn't even a break from school to residency to work, and they are burnt out. They don't want it anymore. And a lot of that burnout comes from point number 11, which is high pressure stakes. Imagine this, every decision that you're making throughout the day matters. Now, matters for most of us, right? But not life on the line matters for many of these decisions. Did you prescribe the right pharmaceutical? Did you make the right diagnosis? Did you see a person fast enough? Did you forget to follow up with someone? These are high pressure circumstances and stakes. The 12th one is no freedom or time off. You don't really get to make your own schedule. You come in when essentially you are told to come in. Now, when you become more of a senior level, you've been there for a while, doctor or nurse, yeah, you get more of your own schedule. There's no doubt about that, but you need a decade or so, inside of that environment to really be at that level, 5 to 10 years for sure. And then time off. It's not like you can say, well, I'm going to go take a month off or 2 weeks off. No, it's like, well, who's going to cover your shift? So it can be a real challenge. So again, the patients don't go away. I remember, I still have plenty of colleagues that are MDs, and I have some that work in the hospital. And if they are not there, their schedule just gets backloaded. They almost never take a day off because they see like 16 people in a day. Some people see over 20, the doctors that I know. Again, like what quality of care can you give if you're seeing 20 to 30 people a day? And a lot of people do because they're 15 to 30 minute appointments. So think about it, 8 times 30 minute appointments, so 8 hours, right? 30 minutes, each of those. So you're seeing 16 people minimum a day, a lot of the time. So, and that's not counting all of your electronic medical records, your voice notes, your callbacks, your talking with the nurse in the practice, et cetera. So again, really difficult. Not a lot of time off, and they feel obligated to work. The 13th point is you take your work home with you. So there's two parts to that. One is you don't finish during the day, right? Like you still have more to do. Once you get home, you have dinner, all that, you got another hour or so, sometimes more to do. And the other one is that you take your work home with you because you're worried about decisions that you've made and what you have coming up over the next couple of days. So it's quite stressful, right? All right, the 14th one is this: more people want virtual work than ever. So, as this doctor was saying, he's now a consultant with hospitals and with businesses from a medical standpoint. He gets to work anywhere in the world, make his schedule and work in front of a computer at his home office, okay? So this is really important. And a lot of our integrative health practitioners are men and women, many women coming from nursing, and they're saying, if I can work between 9 and 2 or whatever hours they want, be able to have a life that's quite well balanced and work from anywhere in the world and work from home, that is what I want. So a lot of people crave now more of the autonomy and freedom than they do even, just a larger paycheck and all of those things. And the fifth one, and the biggest one that was just reiterated over and over from my colleagues and the doctor that I heard speak, was there's just too much stress. It's just too stressful of an industry. It's stressful in school. It's stressful in grad school. It's stressful when it comes time for your board exams. It's stressful in your residency. And then your day-to-day living is just very stressful. And so, there's a old school book called, I'm trying to think of the title right now. It's like, Dead Doctors Don't Lie or something like that. And it was like all the bad habits that doctors have as well to deal with stress. Smoking was one of the biggest one. It still is. I mean, you'd be shocked at how many doctors smoke. The poor eating, they're eating hospital food. You'd think hospital food was healthy food. Of course not. I mean, again, you wish that it was, but they have McDonald's in the base floors. They've got, all sorts of different fast food based restaurants. It's deplorable. And then you've got the lack of sleep, the lack of quality sleep. So again, a really challenging environment. I wanted to share this with you here today because oftentimes we do give doctors a hard time. I don't think they should be given a hard time, and I don't give doctors a hard time at all. I give the conventional medicine philosophy a hard time. Doctors are good people. I really think for the most part, they are good people. They got into this to help. Oftentimes a family member was sick or they were sick when they were younger, and that's why they got into this. They're doing their best. They are in a bad system. Again, this is my opinion. But this is what I hear. Again, being around, I could tell you right now, I have probably 24 to 36 medical doctors that are good friends and colleagues of mine that I chat with all of the time. And then, of course, the greater industry, when I'm at conferences, et cetera, I get to talk with them. And these are nurses as well. I say doctors, but it's kind of like nurses, doctors, physicians, assistants, anybody in that world is what I'm really talking about. And they're good people. They really are. I think the system is broken. I think it needs to change. It needs to move more towards healthcare, not just a pill for every ill. So again, that's my thoughts. I wanted to share that with you here today to kind of give you a different perspective. And I hope that it is helpful. Of course, if it was, do feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care, everybody.